From school days, every Australian knows the story of the introduction of the merino sheep to Australia and of its subsequent development as producer of the world's finest natural fibre. The wool industry's growth from the turn of the century was almost solely responsible for the country's progress and prosperity through the succeeding 50 years. Wool as a raw material was in demand around the globe, and there was no question of begging the buyers to bid. In 1951, prices soared to an astonishing 265 cents per kilo. These were really the days of the golden fleece. Shearing, classing and packing methods on the farms had remained almost unchanged through the years, as had the many forms of transport and handling. All costly moves at a time when the latest heavily promoted synthetic fibres were virtually being produced under one roof. The new synthetics were colourful, cheap and practically shrinkage-free. Wool and wool blends were being used for all-round wear, but were not ready for the easy care era with the flood of washing machines and other aids for the home. The housewife demanded machine washability, but the problem of shrinkage was accentuated as more vigorous machines and tumble dryers became available. Wool prices tumbled, and the industry that had been the backbone of the nation's economy almost since Federation had now become one of its biggest headaches. Research organisations such as the CSIRO became involved. Much had already been done to aid scouring, cleaning and dyeing, but machine washability was a most important target if modern markets were to be satisfied. So with full support from the Australian Wool Board, scientific efforts were intensified. Magnified hundreds of times, wool reveals some of its remarkable qualities. Each tiny fibre of wool is surrounded by a layer of scales. The very thin membrane surrounding this layer hinders the penetration of water in liquid form. Once the water has vaporized, it can be absorbed by the fibre. Wool is capable of absorbing up to 30% or 1/3 of its own weight in water without feeling wet. This compares with 8% for cotton and nearly 0 for synthetics. The scale structure of the wool fibre is important to the fabric's stability and durability. Excessive agitation during washing, however, causes the scales to interlock and consolidate the fabric and cause shrinkage. The scientist's task, therefore, was to modify this surface structure. A variety of resin applications were evaluated to rigid tests of machine washing, detergents, heat and so on. And then, success. Simple yet so dramatically efficient that scientists knew wool had again caught up with synthetic easy care claims without sacrificing its exclusive natural fibre advantages. The latest CSIRO sliver process requires pre-treatment of the wool with a dilute chlorine solution, which makes possible the subsequent application of a thin uniform coating of resin. The combined treatment yields a degree of shrink resistance, which withstands the severest washing conditions. Treated wool is spun and woven into test strips of fabric, which are really given the works. Here, a machine stretches to record destruction point. Abrasion tests give indication of a long wearing life. New dyes developed at the same time combine well with such new processes. They too come in for severe testing. When scientific and wool authorities were satisfied and wool now had the qualities they required, mass production with this and other new processes was quickly underway. But machine washability was not the only thing that wool scientists were perfecting. After 5 years' research by the CSIRO, a permanent press process for machine washable non-iron wool trousers for men was developed. Wool trousers had won through and could go into household washing machines without shrinking or losing shape. Just like the rest of the wash, they can be hung out to dry and never need ironing. Now the housewife can care for all wool garments with minimal precautions, providing they carry the approved labels. There can be no doubt scientific successes so far have improved the popularity of wool around the world. But as marketing problems grow, still more answers are sought to put the natural fibre back on its rightful pedestal. In this part of the world, we naturally think wool because of its importance to the national economy. Such developments as machine washability and permanent press will help its international image. Both here and internationally, with the novelty of synthetics wearing thin, with concern growing about the environment with a rejection of the artificial, there's a steady rejuvenation of preference for the natural fibre that has served mankind since the dawn of time, and which has proved unsurpassed for the comfort of man. The boom days of the Golden Fleece may well be returning, with every scientific test proving wool the best fiber in its field, natural or synthetic. Even the most optimistic don't see it again as the backbone of our economy, but there are those who should know who see a startling recovery just around the corner. Today, the natural fiber is such that it can really take it. And to prove that, take a look at some of the places where it excels.